Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast. It's episode 15. We've got no game to look back on in this week's podcast as I am away for the next few days. So we're going to be looking ahead to the Brighton game tomorrow. And then obviously next week's podcast will include the Fulham and the Brighton game, looking back at those as well. So we've had you guys getting involved on Twitter, as you always do. You're good as gold in that sort of sense. So you guys have been getting yourselves involved, talking about the game against Brighton, talking about last week's game a bit against Burnley, and talking about what changes you'd make to the lineup in terms to get the best result out of Brighton and Hove Albion, who are just a point above us in the table, or just a couple of points above us in the table, I think. But hopefully we're going to go out there and get a win. But until then, you've got to enjoy. You're with me for the next 20 minutes or so. We'll be talking all about the Brighton game. They're 2 points ahead of us, and hopefully we can go and get the win. If you're new around here, make sure you go and drop a follow on the podcast, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or subscribe on YouTube. And make sure you go and follow the Twitter page at the Baggies Pod. So, without further ado, let's go straight into this. So, we play Brighton tomorrow, which is the 26th of October at 5:30. Hopefully, I'm recording this on the Sunday. Hopefully, it'll be out to you by the end of Sunday, so you'll be able to listen to it before the game. And it's going to be an interesting game, really. Two sides that are going to be around the sort of bottom half of the table. Brighton play some nice football, but we really need a win. If we weren't going to get one at Burnley, we've got to pick up some points in this month. The Brighton and the Fulham games are became twice as important as the draw of Burnley stated. Really, it became twice as important, and one that we really need to win. So, we played a much better side. As in the lineup we put out is a really good side. It's a surprise as well, really, because with Bilic, we don't really expect him to make those big dropping decisions like Sawyers, who's been a real massive part of the promotion-winning side, been a real fixed element in that midfield unless he's been suspended or injured. So it was a surprise to see him drop last game. But Conor Gallagher, what a game from him, came straight in and really did well. Semi Ajayi didn't play last week either, due to the fact that he was he played 90 minutes for Nigeria in the midweek before that. But Conor Gallagher came in and did a superb job, and it was fantastic. And another big decision was bringing Karlan Grant straight in for his debut. That was a fantastic decision for me by Slaven. I didn't expect that either. I expected Robinson to play, but in the end he did bring him off with about 20 minutes to go, and Karlan Grant got his rest because he's not really match fit. You could tell that he needed a bit of practice, a bit more extra training, and hopefully he's had that now, which is really good. And he's had his chance to get himself gelled in, because he'd only been there for a few days, bear in mind. He signed on the Thursday and played on the Monday, so he didn't have very much time to gel into the side. But hopefully now for this Brighton game, Karlan Grant's going to get a bit more time to gel, and hopefully a bit more time to get some training in, and hopefully make himself a big name at West Bromwich Albion. Another thing that we need to discuss is that Ahmed Higazi has been looked at by some Saudi Arabian clubs. I can't really tell you which one. I'm not really sure about which specific team has been after him, but apparently he's been looking. He doesn't want to move, apparently, and Slaven does not want him to move either, which is good, because I like Ahmed Higazi, one of my favourite players at West Brom at the moment. Him and Semi Ajayi will make a fantastic pairing in the Premier League. But with that in mind, Branislav Ivanovic had a superb game last week against Burnley. Looked absolutely solid. Whether that's because the strikers played to his strengths, so they were Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes and even Jay Rodriguez, not really known for being fast, not really known for being particularly skillful. They're real battle rams, if for want of a better word. They just rub up against defenders, win headers, win flick-ons, barge themselves about, use their body a lot. So they're interesting players, and not ones that probably play to Semi Ajayi's strengths anyway, because he's physical when he needs to be, but he certainly isn't known for his strength. He's really known for his pace, and in that sort of game, you just don't, it's just unnecessary to have him there when you can have two real bruising centre-backs in Higazi and also Ivanovic. Playing it's a really good debut. I think I underestimated him quite a lot. I said that this after the Burnley game, but I really did underestimate Branislav Ivanovic when he came into the club. I thought, how old is he? 36 now. Yeah, he's an old fella. really, in football terms. And I did think, if nobody else has really wanted him from Zenit St. Petersburg, nobody else has looked at him and gone, you know what, we'll take him because he'll do a good job. And nobody at Premier League level, whether it's a wage thing or not, that sort of sense. But nobody really looked at him. There's nobody rumoured really with picking him up. So I was a bit sceptical, thinking, oh my God, are we just going to pick up some old fogey here and he's going to be no good whatsoever? But in the end, it proved, in that first game, proved to be a really good signing so far. I mean, we can only judge him by the game that we've seen, but he was really good. Another big change coming in was Filip Krovinovic coming in as well in that centre attacking midfield position. I suppose that was sort of a change that was going to happen in a game like that. I mean, Filip Krovinovic is going to be used to playing that sort of style of football that Burnley play. Burnley essentially play the way that a Championship side will play, a side like Millwall, to pick one out of thin air. Hard, aggressive side, pressing, working hard for each other. They don't play pretty football, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. So it won't be too different to what Filip Krovinovic was used to in the Championship. He didn't have his best game. He was really tidy on the ball, but sometimes there were chances for me that Filip Krovinovic could have made different passes where he decided to perhaps go sideways, where he could have maybe, if you'd had Pereira on the ball, maybe he could have made that defence-splitting pass, and both of them were to Karlan Grant, which would have been fantastic. Karlan Grant obviously did have the ball in the back of the net at one point, just missed time in his run a tad. So if he hadn't done that, maybe he would have been in with a good shout for a first goal for West Bromwich Albion. But hopefully, I'm saying that with a lot of hope, that he's going to come in and get that goal for us in the next game. I do believe that he's going to be able to get off and running perhaps in this game against Brighton. Now for a bit of focus on the opposition. Got plenty of good players, Brighton, and I'm going to sort of dissect that a bit now. I mean, I wouldn't call myself a follower of Brighton, but I do sort of know their style of play, and I do know the way that they sort of work in their team. So let's go for their last game against Crystal Palace. So they drew 1-1. I think that's I can't remember what the derby's called, but a bit of a derby for them. They managed to get a last-minute equaliser really and save themselves from losing 1-0. Lewis Dunk will be suspended for this game, which I suppose is a big plus for West Bromwich Albion. Our team, we need a big performance from our strikers really, because that's a big boost. Lewis Dunk's probably, alongside Ben White, for me, is their best centre back. So it's good to see that he's suspended. He's their captain as well, so maybe they might lose a bit of structural organisation in that. They've got some tend to play a 3 at the back system, 3-4-2-1. With 2 centre attacking midfield behind the striker, who will likely to be Neal Maupay up front for them. Now he's a bit of a hot-headed sort of player, likes to get in players' faces. He's, you can see some of the things that he gets involved with on the football pitch, and hopefully our centre-backs can sort of rise above that sort of thing and keep him quiet really, because he's got a good shot on him. Championship top scorer when he played for Brentford, I think, in that season that we played them in 2018-19. So he's going to do a solid job probably for Brighton, and did do last season. Got 10 goals last season and already got 4 this campaign. So he's a bit of a sharp shooter as well. They'll probably play the 3 at the back as in a bit differently due to Lewis Dunk. Ben White actually played in the holding midfield role for Brighton last game, but now will probably be dropping into that back 3 alongside Webster and probably Dan Burn as well. And then they have this really good fullback. I'm sure you will have heard of him because he's been making quite a few waves in the Premier League world recently, and that's Tariq Lamptey, who's been playing right wing back for them, or right midfield if you like. And he's done an astonishing job. He's so fast. He's a real little pocket rocket. He's quite a short lad as well. And he's been getting around defenders and doing really well for Brighton. So what a poach from Brighton. Even Bayern Munich have been interested in him. So he's going to be a good player, and one that I suppose it'll be Townsend and whoever's on that left side, might be Diangana or Pereira. I'm going to have to try and keep quiet because he'll try and overlap whoever's playing in that centre attacking midfield role. But they're probably going to go with Yves Bissouma, who will play in the midfield with perhaps Steven Alzate as well, or maybe I'm not sure what they're looking like for injuries really. They've got a few outs. They got Jahan Shabash who's out, Christian Walton out, Danny Welbeck out, Florian Ajone out, and Jose Izquierdo out as well, but Lewis Dunk also suspended, which we discussed earlier. And they play Solly March on that left wing, and then they'll probably play Adam Lallana, former Liverpool man, and Leonardo Trossard in that centre attacking midfield role behind Neal Maupay. They like to play the football, Brighton. Graham Potter is known for having this sort of philosophical way of playing football, and he likes to play out from the back, likes to press teams high and create small spaces for the other teams to play in, and likes to it's more of a really good playing style. It's a really good playing style. It's what you like to see a team at the bottom playing, and hopefully they're going to they're not going to be able to play that football really. And it's worth mentioning as well that this game is actually another pay-per-view game, and we haven't discussed this much on the podcast, but we might as well go for it now. I have to say it's ridiculous. I have to push the bat out and say that it's a disgrace that fans are being taken the mickey out of to pay for this sort of football, and using their love of football against them in a way. I mean, I won't be paying for it at all. I'd hope not at all. There'll be no occasion where I'll need to pay for that. It's just a bit of a disgrace, really. I feel like they're taking the mickey, Sky Sports and BT alone, how these teams have voted for it. The only team who didn't vote for it was Leicester City, and you have to say good on them. Standing up against the people who are probably going to make the decisions regarding TV packages. But West Brom, their next game that's not on pay-per-view and actually on proper telly, I think it might be, I can't remember where they said, but we're not on in November at all, I don't think, even though we're playing Tottenham and we're playing Manchester United. We're not on for the Fulham game either. I thought that might be on, because there's two teams who are going to be scrapping around the bottom, same with this one against Brighton. But no, they seem only interested in the big teams, and it really is a disgrace. I'd recommend, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't normally recommend you to do something like this, but I'd recommend you go and find yourself a special stream on the internet. Lots of West Brom pages put them up during the game. I recommend you do that instead of throwing money away, I'll say, if you like. So hopefully we'll all get to watch the game, and hopefully they'll give this idea up, because apparently there was only 70 people who watched the Burnley. It's 70 too many, but of course people are going to pay for it, because some people are silly like that, and some people do really want to support the club, and you have to side by them if that's their decision, but you can't side by the people making these decisions either. And something that has come up, literally it's just come up in the past few minutes, is that Hegazi looks to be leaving West Bromwich Albion for Saudi Arabia. At the moment, he's the highest earner at the club, taking home about £70,000 a week, and apparently the wages saved are going towards Bilic's pot for January. I think that's a disgrace. I would never get rid of Ahmed Hegazi, no matter how much he's earning. He's one of the best centre-backs at the club, probably the best, him and Sami Ajayi. I'd say Ivanovic at the moment because of the game he played last game, but I feel like Hegazi, I'd really want him to stay. He's one of my favourite players, and I definitely wouldn't want to see him go. I know I said earlier on in the podcast that it didn't look like he was leaving, but Joseph Massi, as always, very reliable, so I'm going to trust in him on this one. So it's a shame that he's looking to be leaving the club for Saudi Arabia. I can't believe they've let him go, really. It's a real poor decision from the club. I mean, I know it's going to free up some wages, but certainly without strengthening, our centre-backs are now Ajayi, Ivanovic and Bartley. That leaves a lot to be desired, really. If one gets injured, if Ajayi gets injured, I know Shea, of course, but he tends to be played as a right back. If Ajayi gets injured, it's going to be Ivanovic, Bartley, and that does look like a bit of a calamity pairing, I'm afraid. Yeah, Hegazi looks to be leaving, but it's just the club's decision. It's Bilic's decision. He wouldn't let him go if he didn't want him to go. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to say goodbye to Hegazi by the looks of things, which is not what we wanted. But without further ado, let's get on to what you guys have been thinking, because you've been sending in your answers, of course, as you always do. You're good as gold in that sort of sense. So I asked you guys a few questions, 3 questions in particular. Number 1, what did you think about Grant against Burnley? Number 2, what changes to the 11 would you make for Brighton? And 3, a score prediction. So Mark has messaged in, and he said Grant looked good, another week of training will help. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the more time he's given to bed in is going to be perfect for him. He thinks that we'll sneak it against Brighton 2-1 and keep the same lineup against Burnley. I'd keep the same lineup, I think. I don't think anybody deserved to lose their place, nor do I think that anybody who came off the bench deserves to come back into the side, especially Sawyers, who did come on, but I don't think he did enough to earn his place back, and I don't think anybody did less enough to not be in the side. So Albion News Gaming says that Grant was very bright and he'd swap Ajayi for Hegazi for his pace. Might not have a choice in that. I think Ajayi might just be playing anyway with no Hegazi whatsoever due to him leaving. And he thinks the score will be 2-2. Paul Garbutt has also messaged in and he says, good first half and unlucky with the disallowed goal. Ran out of match fitness in the second half, hence the substitution. Absolutely. He had a really good first half, making some really bright runs that I haven't seen a striker do for quite a while at West Bromwich Albion. He wouldn't make any changes to the starting 11, neither would I, apart from the obviously forced change that it looks like going to be Ajayi for Hegazi. And Baggies, he thinks are going to win 2-1. I'd agree. I think Baggies 2-1. I don't think we'll be able to keep a clean sheet. I think we'll be too focused on getting that attacking mentality going, and Brighton will probably nick one at the other end. Unlike Burnley, who were unable to do that, which was good because we kept a clean sheet. People saying how bad our defence is, we kept a decent clean sheet, which was good. Which we don't normally do. We haven't kept one this season, but we managed to keep one against Burnley, which is really good. And we managed to show a good Burnley side that we can defend. However, they were a pretty dull side to watch, Burnley. Hopefully we'll get a good game of football between us and Brighton though. So that brings us to the end of the Baggies podcast. If you're new around here, make sure to go and drop a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever you're listening on. Make sure you're dropping a follow and supporting the podcast, and go on Twitter at the Baggies Pod to get involved and get your thoughts in for the next podcast, of course. So if you've enjoyed it, make sure you do all those things, and hope you all have a fantastic week. And I'll see you next. I think we'll get it out on Tuesday after the Fulham game, and we'll review this Brighton game as well in the following podcast. So have a very good week, Baggies fans, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.